transition to the NFC, and let's talk about the matchup in Minnesota. It's the New York Giants traveling to take on Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are favored by 3 points. It's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The over-under for this game is 48.5 points. These two teams faced off against each other in Week 16. The Vikings beat the Giants 27-24. In that game, Daniel Jones played sensational. He went 30 of 42. He threw for 334 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, he went 34 of 48. He threw for 299 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the Vikings were able to beat the Giants. They outscored the Giants 17-11 in the fourth quarter. That ended up being the difference in the game and the reason why the Vikings beat the Giants. So when I look at this matchup, let's start off with the Giants. Daniel Jones this year, he has made progress as a quarterback. And I believe the reason why he's made progress is because of Brian Daboll, the new head coach for the New York Giants. The job that he has done leading Daniel Jones this season, I can't say enough about the job that Brian Daboll has done. I know on Tuesday night show, when I did my preview on the Chargers-Jaguars matchup, I talked about how Doug Peterson deserved NFL Coach of the Year. You can make an argument for Brian Daboll to be the NFL Coach of the Year because what he's been able to do with Daniel Jones this year, it's nothing short of sensational. Because I was not a believer in Daniel Jones, and honestly, I'm still not. I'll get to that here in a bit. But this year, Daniel Jones, he's had a good season. 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,205 passing yards. He's completed 67% of his passes. Coming into this season, I was of the belief that if Daniel Jones doesn't play well for the New York Giants, they need to figure out a way to draft a quarterback because Daniel Jones is not the answer. And this year, he has been very, very impressive. And in that matchup against the Vikings in Week 16, he had over 300 yards passing in that game. That was one of the best games of the season for Daniel Jones. Now, the strength of this Giants offense is Saquon Barkley. I love the season that Saquon Barkley is having, and I believe that Saquon Barkley should also be in the mix for comeback player of the year. He's been sensational this year. 295 carries, 1,312 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns on the season. He's been that security blanket for Daniel Jones. So whenever Daniel Jones gets in trouble, they can rely on Saquon Barkley in the running game, and he can help them move the chains. He's averaging over 4 yards per carry this year. Saquon is big time. He's big time. And I think he has elevated himself to be in that conversation again with the best running backs in the NFL. So I love what he's been able to do this year, and he's the strength of their football team. Because I don't believe in the Giants receivers. Darius Slayton, Richie James. I just don't believe in the Giants receiving core. I really, really don't. This kid named Isaiah Hodgins, I don't believe in their receiving core whatsoever. I believe the only chance that the Giants have is depending on Saquon Barkley to be productive in the running game. I don't like the Giants receiving core. I really, really don't. And the Giants overall as an offense, they're ranked 26th in the NFL and total passing yards per game. They average 186 passing yards per game. So they're ranked in the bottom half and throwing the football. Now they can run the football with Saquon Barkley. They're ranked 4th in the NFL. They average 148 rushing yards per game. That's the strength of their offense. So they're going to have to run the football in order to be effective against this Vikings defense. But the thing is, the Vikings defense is one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Defensively, the Vikings defense, they give up 266 passing yards per game. That's ranked 31st in the NFL. 31st in the NFL. And let me name some of the quarterbacks who faced the Vikings this year since Thanksgiving and the numbers that they have put up. In week 12, Mac Jones, he put up 382 passing yards against that Vikings defense. Mike White, he put up 369 passing yards. Jared Goff in week 14, he had 330 passing yards against that Vikings defense. Matt Ryan in week 15 had 182 passing yards. We know how terrible Matt Ryan's season was this year. Daniel Jones in week 16, 334 yards passing this year in that game against the Vikings. 334 yards passing. So you can throw the football against that Vikings defense. You really, really can. And, defensively, they are not even that good against the run. They give up 123 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 20th in the NFL. So this Vikings defense is not great. They got Kendricks at linebacker. They got Hicks at linebacker as well. Up front, they got Zadarius Smith. You still got Hunter at linebacker. In the secondary, they got Patrick Peterson. They got Harrison Smith. I mean, Patrick Peterson, he's past his prime as well. I'm not impressed with this Vikings defense whatsoever. So I think the strength of the Giants is to run the football. But I think that the Vikings have been so bad against the pass that the Giants, they may need to see if Daniel Jones can make some explosive plays in the passing game against this Vikings pass defense. That's how bad the Vikings pass defense has been this year. They've been terrible. So that's going to be interesting to see. Now, let's switch gears to the other side of the ball. The Vikings, they are led by Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins this year quietly has had a good season. For the season, Kirk Cousins, he has 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He has 4,547 passing yards. He's completed 66% of his passes. I believe that Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. But Kirk Cousins is not to be confused with an elite quarterback, because in primetime moments, Kirk Cousins comes up small. When the lights are at its brightest, that's when Kirk Cousins shrinks, and he doesn't play well in primetime games. I'm going to give y'all an interesting stat. This is Kirk Cousins during his career. This is in college and with Washington. This is in late window games with the Vikings. He is 5-9, and his average loss is by 15 points or more. That's in late window games. Late window games are 4:30 and on. And in Washington, in late window games, Kirk Cousins was 2-9. Even in Michigan State, in college, their late window games are considered 3:30 and on for the start time. He was 3-6. So Kirk Cousins is 10-24 overall since he came out of high school in late prime time games. That's not good. Not good at all. Now, the one time where Kirk Cousins actually played well in the playoffs was when the Vikings beat the Saints in 2019. Kirk Cousins in that game, he played pretty good in that game, and he helped the Vikings beat Drew Brees and Sean Payton in New Orleans. So he did pretty good in that game. Now, overall, his career record in the postseason, Kirk Cousins is 1-2 in the postseason. He has 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 774 passing yards. He's completed 62% of his passes. That's his numbers in the postseason. So not very impressive. And it's funny because when I look at the NFC, the Eagles are led by Jalen Hurts. The 49ers are led by rookie quarterback Brock Purdy. The Giants are led by Daniel Jones. The Cowboys, they got Dak Prescott. The only other veteran quarterback that's in the NFC that has the longevity that Kirk Cousins has is Tom Brady. I mean, there's no other experienced quarterback in the NFC besides Tom Brady that Kirk Cousins has to worry about. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to get a lot of style points if the Vikings beat the Giants, because the Giants are not considered to be a juggernaut in the NFC like the 49ers are or like the Eagles are. But I definitely think it can hurt Kirk Cousins when it comes to the conversation as to whether or not the Vikings could ever win a Super Bowl with him if they lose this game. Kirk Cousins has to get it done Sunday afternoon against this Giants football team. So far this year, his completion percentage, he's ranked 15th in the NFL. His passing yards per game is 268 passing yards per game. That's ranked 4th in the NFL. He's averaging 7 yards per pass attempt. That's ranked 15th in the NFL. And his passing touchdowns is tied for 5th. His 14 interceptions, though, is tied for 28th. That's his NFL rank in the major statistical categories. So Kirk Cousins, I believe that he's better than Daniel Jones is, but we know that this Vikings offense is led by Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson will be the best player on the field when these two teams face off against each other Sunday afternoon in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson had a great season this year. 128 receptions, 1,809 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. I believe Justin Jefferson should have been in the NFL MVP conversation. I don't think that the Vikings would be 13-4 without Justin Jefferson. The same way Jamar Chase had a great rookie season last year for the Bengals, that's the same thing Jefferson has done this year for the Vikings. But offensively, the Vikings, they have other pieces in that offense who can contribute for this football team. They got Adam Thielen. I think Adam Thielen is a proven number 2 option at receiver. Dalvin Cook is an underrated running back in this league. We don't give Dalvin Cook enough credit for being able to produce for the Vikings offense. Now, this year, when you look at the Vikings running game, they averaged 98 rushing yards per game. That's tied for 27th in the NFL. So they don't run the ball enough for my liking. I think they should give the ball to Dalvin Cook much more often than they do. I think Dalvin Cook can definitely produce for this Vikings offense, and you won't need Kirk Cousins to drop back the pass 40 or 40 times to win football games. If Dalvin Cook can help this Vikings offense with his productivity in the running game, I think that will be a recipe for success for this Vikings football team as they start this playoff journey. But another key trade that was made mid-season by a contender in the NFL was the Vikings going out and getting T.J. Hockenson from the Detroit Lions. That was a great pickup. T.J. Hockenson, he wanted an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, and the Vikings gave him just that when they made that trade mid-season. So far this year, Hockenson, 60 receptions, 519 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he could be a great weapon for Kirk Cousins in the red zone for the Vikings once they get inside the 20. 6'5". So he can definitely help Kirk Cousins and be a reliable red zone target for the Vikings to be able to score points. So this matchup is going to be interesting. It's crazy because when you look at the numbers from the Week 16 meeting, even though the Vikings beat the Giants, they won in every major statistical category in that game. The Giants, they had 444 total yards. The Vikings had 353. The Giants had 319 passing yards. The Vikings had 270. The Giants had 126 rushing yards. The Vikings had 83 rushing yards. The Giants averaged 6.7 yards per play. The Vikings averaged 5 yards per play. So the Vikings won the game, but the Giants, they won in every major statistical category. So this matchup is interesting. A lot of people are picking the Giants with an upset, and I've been going back and forth all week with my prediction. But I want to say this real quick too, about the coaches. We got 2 first-year head coaches going up against each other. Brian Daboll versus Kevin O'Connell. I give Kevin O'Connell a lot of credit for what he's been able to do this year with Kirk Cousins, because last year and in previous seasons, I don't believe that Mike Zimmer believed in Kirk Cousins the way that Kevin O'Connell believes in Cousins. And so I think knowing that his head coach believes in him, I think that has given Kirk Cousins confidence to help this Vikings offense play at a high level. So this is a good coaching matchup, but I would probably give the slight edge to Brian Daboll over Kevin O'Connell. What Daboll has been able to do with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is not on the same level as Kirk Cousins is. What Daboll has been able to do with Daniel Jones, it's a great coaching job in his first season. In his first season, the impact that he's had on Daniel Jones, I can't say enough about it. So I give Brian Daboll the advantage when it comes to the 2 head coaches in this game. So, with all that being said, even though the Vikings beat the Giants in Week 16, even though the Vikings had a record of 13-4 to finish the season, I am rolling with the New York Giants to upset the Vikings at US Bank Stadium Sunday afternoon in Minnesota. I'm going Giants 24, Vikings 21. This is my upset pick of the weekend. I believe that the Giants are going to pull off the upset over the Vikings. So that's what I got. Giants 24, Vikings 21. Call into the show, 513-203-8655, 513-203-8655.